Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the launch of Best of British Science Fiction 2023. Um, Hello, you're most welcome. So I'll I'll be introducing all my guests in a moment. The guests that I have are all authors from Best of British Science Fiction 2023. Some of them have been in more than one of these editions. Some of them have been in a few of them. And we're going to be talking about the stories and uh, what we like in the world of science fiction at the moment and things like that and what we're up to. So if you would like to throw any questions our way, any chat, please do so. You can use the chat function on YouTube and just type in any comments. If you want us to say hello, that's great. Um, and and what we'll do is I will pop some banners across the front. So like this is an example of a banner with your questions in, and you'll be able to answer them. Otherwise, we'll just answer our own and see how this goes. At the end of this is a live recording, so it'll be on my channel, which is Donna Scott Comedy on YouTube. So you'll be able to watch this back at any time if you want to. In the meantime, let me introduce you to my guests. So we have got David Claydon,
Hello.
taken Maria Smith.
Hi.
We've got a return from Robert Bagnall.
Oh,
We have Jane Fenn, and we have Dr. Fiona Moore. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
hello. Good evening.
This is So we are all in our offices, as you can see. This is the typical layout of a science fiction writer stroke editor. You've all got lots and lots of books in the background and in various states of teetering TBRs as well. I've got a very dangerous book launch going on over there, I think. Not so much behind me. Behind me, I have got the Cabinet of Glory, which is in which I have all of my best of British science fictions so far. Do you have a special place, everybody, for your best of British science fictions? Those of you who've been in multiple ones?
I have a shelf for things that I've been in, and it tends to be things I've been in rather than entire books I've written. And it did, a few years ago, it was just like a little fraction of a shelf, and now I think it might be two shelves. So,
Yes, I think we've all got the shelves of glory, as it were. So let me see. Out of all of you, because I'm an editor with very little memory, how many of you have been in more than one edition of Best of British Science Fiction? Okay, is it? I think is it all of you? Multiple. You come back for more punishment. Okay, so it's Roberts was here last year when we did this live launch last time, and we say happy book birthday to all of us. Our book birthday is actually on release now. I emailed you all earlier to let you know that there was some gremlins happening and that only the print version was available. Well, what a difference a couple of hours makes. Okay, so not only are we launching the print version, the paperback version of Best of British Science Fiction today, we are also able to tell you that the link on Amazon for the ebook is now live, which is great news for those of us who like selling things. I mean, fans of Jeffrey Bezos, just send your money over there and let him buy another rocket. So, it's been a whole year since the last one. So I would like to know what everyone has been up to in the intervening year. So 2023 to 2024, what has your year been like? What have you achieved in this year? I'm going to ask David.
Oh, you caught me on the hop here. Probably for me, if we're talking writing, I assume we are. I had a novelette published in Analog. Actually, the longest thing I think I've written that's been published. That was my third story for Analog, so that was quite an honour. and I was then even more fortunate that Locus picked up on it and made it one of their recommended reading stories. AC Wise, who may be familiar with Reviews Analog, so she very kindly said some very nice things about it. So I think that's probably my highlight, obviously apart from being in this. That's the highlight of the last 12 months for me.
Oh, brilliant! Yes, that sounds good. I was to say there, I was looking like I was reacting very favourably towards your novelette, but of course we were joined by a cat. Who is the cat, Fiona?
I can't compete with a cat. I realise
Yes, this is Aisha, she who must be obeyed, and she loves online meetings. You know, I've had to put her on staff as a teaching assistant, but I've just come back from 2 weeks in Korea, and she's very clingy as a result. Wants to make sure I go to sleep again.
Oh yes, we get a lot of that. I imagine we'll get a lot of that after Worldcon as well, because
yeah, I haven't told her about that yet.
Yeah, I would say, like, your cat is very loud. I could hear that purr. Normally, you don't
Yes.
hear the cats purring. It's normally like, can you hear that? And there's, no, nobody else can hear it.
No, she's super loud. Yeah, you're so tiny, but you've got a huge purr.
Okay, we've been joined by some other writers from Best of British Science Fiction. That's Vaughan Stanger. He says hello, and also Gary Cousins saying hello there. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so Taker, what have you been up to this year?
Probably the highlight of this year has been me editing a book called The Utopia of Us, which is published by Luna Press Publishing, and I should have gone and picked up a copy, but it's over there, so I won't go across there to get it.
Mine's over here as well. Again, it's out of reach, but I've got to move something that would be too rustily. But otherwise, yes.
So that's an anthology of short stories inspired by Yevgeny Zamyatin's We, because it's 100 years since it's first published, and obviously it's the inspiration for George Orwell's 1984, and I got some cracking stories for that, so I'm very proud of that. And it's also a charity anthology, so we're hoping to raise funds for the Ukraine humanitarian appeal, so that has taken up a huge chunk of my time. But in the background, I've been commissioned to write a couple of short stories, so they'll be coming out in anthologies soon, I hope. Yes.
Oh, fabulous. Yes. And that's with Luna Press, isn't it?
It is, yes. The Utopia of Us with Luna Press Publishing. Yeah. So just do check it out.
Yeah, waves at Luna Press. Some other people joining us. Philip says hi. Philip Irving, also in Best of British Science Fiction. And congratulations on your recent marriage, Philip, to the lovely Helen. And hello, Stan Nichols. Hey. And Vaughan says that we need a cat to sub while we're out of shots. Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. Speaking of cats, Fiona, owner of Cat, what have you been up to?
Well,
how you're going to be known.
Owned by Cat, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, I've got some good. It's been a good year. I've my novel Rabbit in the Moon, which I was pretty sure was cursed, might actually be coming out in the autumn, I hope. It's been acquired by Epic Publishing, and so climate fiction, alternate realities, and Aztec posthumans. I think it's got everything. And I've got a couple of short stories coming out later. Well, one's a novelette and the other's a short story. And also what's most recently been published is, if people have read my short stories in Clark's World, The Spoil Heap and its sequel, Morag's Boy, the third story, The Portmeirion Road, was published earlier this year in Clark's World, so that's now available and free to read. Finally, I've been commissioned to write an academic book concerning an episode of Blake 7, so watch this space.
Oh, brilliant. So you had, of course, as it management lessons from Game of Thrones you did as well. That was Exciting.
Came
So
out,
yeah,
came out in 2022 and still going.
yay. Okay, so we have some more hellos. It's Ed Fortune of Starburst. We also have a hello from Paul Rogers. Hi, Paul. Thanks for joining us. So I'm on to Jane now. Jane, how has your 2023 to 24 year gone?
I'm in a kind of fortunate position in that I actually write for a living, but I write video games, and they are quite all-consuming. So my fiction writing has not really been that great in the last year or so, because all of my brain has been going into writing games. But I get paid every month for it, and there's a lot to be said for that. I did have the short story collection Strange Attractors out from the fabulous New Con Press out last summer, and there's a copy of that over there, which I should have got. And I was very pleased when it was shortlisted for a BSFA award. So quite a quiet year for me, but still pleasing.
Brilliant. Yeah, you're up against the entire of Best of British Science Fiction 2020. We won the BSFA award for. Yeah, I think next year they're gonna actually do different things from what I understand. Yeah, so make it a little bit different. Robert, how has your year been?
Yeah, not bad. I mean, I said earlier on that I tend to be in anthologies rather than produce things, with my name solo on the front cover. Although I did have a 10,000 word novella published by Double Dragon called The Credo of Comrade January, which was or is set in two parallel St. Petersburgs, a city I've never been to. All my research was on Google Street View and just Googling stuff, and hey, it's good enough to be published, which is great. I mean, another reason that I don't tend to have stuff with my name on, I love spreadsheets. If you can put it on a spreadsheet, I'll put it on a spreadsheet. And I've just looked in the last year on my novel. I've extended it by 8,279 words, so you can probably work out how long it will take to get there. But I will mention that is an extension of the first story I had in the Best of British Science Fiction back in, well, I think it was titled 2016, published in 2017. Non-work related, I suppose the headline is I ran in the general election this year, and for the Green Party, and got 3.1%, so lost my deposit. But I did take, if you want to Google South Devon primary, they ran this primary exercise to choose a progressive candidate or back a progressive candidate, which involved me doing 7 90-minute hustings head to head against the former leader of the Liberal Democrats in the European Parliament, which was a bit of a mismatch. But in all my introductions, I got a mention in that I write science fiction and got a plug in for the Best of British Science Fiction. But at that point, I could only say that I was in 4. I knew I was in this 5th one, but it was under, you'd sort of said, don't mention it. So I would have loved to have said I was in 5 and the latest, but it was embargoed. But that was the highlight of my year.
Well, but let me just see. Vaughan says kudos, and I have to agree that's a very awesome thing to have done this year, I think. And sad that you didn't get through, but some good people got through this election. I don't know. Did we expect to be living in some kind of utopia? It is too soon to call it, isn't it?
It is. But I don't want to turn this into a political debate. I've been doing enough political debating, so it's quite nice to take that hat off and put the authorial hat on and talk about something completely different.
Yeah, yes. We're also joined by someone else who's been in a best of, Liam Hogan, who says hello, and he also says that 5 is most impressive there. So yes. Okay, so where's our comments now? I think we're going to kick it off with first of all, wine and cheese time. It is a launch. So just to talk about what we've got in terms of wine and cheese. I will kick off. I've got a nice plate here, which I won't touch, but I've been to St Giles Cheese in Northampton, purveyors of some very fine cheeses indeed. They didn't supply the cream crackers, but they did supply these beautiful fig biscuits. And I've got bay tree fig chutney to go with that. Then I've got a goat's cheese called Le Fleur, which is covered in flowers. It's so sweet and fragrant. I've got a Spanish blue, and I've got a French Tom. Love a French Tom cheese. And it's covered in a kind of like a dark rind. See that now? And my wine, I promised I would, didn't I? Last year I had Gary Barlow, and it was very good. And I thought, what other celebrity wines do we want to try? So this year, I've gone for Cali Red by Snoop Dogg. So tasting notes. So it's 2021 year. Contains Snoop Dogg in a hood. And is that your best picture, Snoop? Because it looks a bit blurry. I mean, I've had my face done on a label for bottles before, and it's like, yeah, sometimes you think I was drunk when I chose it. And this is Cali Red is brought to you by Cali's own Snoop Dogg. His story tells of overcoming adversity and beating the odds and taking his place as a leader in contemporary pop culture, which is something we all aspire to, I think. Yeah. Snoop embodies the timeless values of perseverance and redemption. I would very much like to be redeemed, but usually this leads to not being redeemed.
I need to be redeemed.
It says full and dense. Hey, I am full and dense, with strong black and blue fruit notes, complemented by bright red, slightly candied fruit and toasted oak. Okay, Cali Red, defiant by nature, bold in character, and always uncompromising. It doesn't say what grape. To me, that's what I normally look for. What grape is it? And I say it smells very, very floral. I don't know what I'm doing here. It tastes nice. There you go. It tastes nice. It's very sweet. It's quite sweet. If you like sweet wines, it's a little bit like Jamshed. Perhaps a bit plummier than Jamshed, but yeah. Yeah, there we go. If you were looking for a fruity, jammy wine, and you were not looking to spend £12 on a bottle of Mazda, I'd go Jamshed, honestly. There we go. Okay, what else has everybody else got?
Who wants to go?
Full disclosure, this is my second wine and cheese party of the evening. Middle-aged raven, because me and the other village, we have a monthly, it's actually port and cheese sort of bitch session where we eat cheese and drink port, which we were doing on the patio for about an hour and a half earlier. So I have very little cheese because I'm full. There's a tiny bit of Lincolnshire poacher, and there's Cornish yard, which still has the nettle, which is the most important bit. Robert, I think you and I both live in the West Country, but that's a different conversation to have. I
Absolutely.
have very little bits of cheese, and I just have the good old Carcelo because it's just reliable. You just can't go wrong with it. Anyway, I'm already cheesed up. So.
Shall I go next? I took your warning, Donna, about cheese on a school night. I don't have any cheese to hand, but there was Parmesan on the sort of lentil bolognese mess with pasta that we just had. But I do have a, can you see it there? I do have a barley wine from Brewdog called Five Boroughs, unopened. I'll just open it. Very fine, but probably quite expensive. I think they sent me a load for, I don't know what I did, but they sent me a 3 or 4 bottles of it. So I will open that. There you go. Open before your very eyes.
Oh,
I shall
we need
enjoy
to just sniff it to like. Is it like a barley wine of old? It's been ages since I've seen any barley wine.
It's a bit darker than your usual barley wine. I do remember the Whitbread barley wine that my local pub used to serve, and when I was 18, probably 17, I possibly had a couple too many with my milkman, I seem to remember, and had to take the long route home because, frankly, I was just a little bit sort of spaced. But it's for something that for a beer. I mean, let's call it a beer. It's a beer. It's a barley wine.
Beer, yeah.
8.6%. You'd think that the strength would overpower it, but it's It's nice. Brewdog, if you're out there, send me another box. I'm doing your marketing, for God's sake. Please, you know where I live. Send me another box.
Yeah, when I used to run a pub, you'd have like these old fellas come in with their wives, and they'd be like, "I'll have a pint of mild and a barley wine for the missus," because it was it's what the ladies drink, because they can't cope with beer. They can't cope with beer.
Yeah.
Never mind, his pint is 3%, and hers is 9%. She's trolling. She's loving it.
I think that was his strategy.
Anybody else got any wine and cheese, or wine?
Well, I'm feeling very out of the class of everybody else. I've just got a bog standard yellowtail Shiraz, but it's nice. I like it.
And when it's the third of the
like
day,
it in the room. So
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
I think that might be my excuse to drink quickly before the flies land in it.
I can't remember what is the Aldi version of yellowtail. I think it's got a salamander on it, so you can tell they've basically ripped off the label, and they've got their own version of 19 Crimes called the Reprobates. So yeah, check out Aldi Wines.
Yeah.
Fiona, do you have anything?
Not at the moment, but I have historical wine. I just came pretty much directly from graduation ceremonies at my day job, which is a university. So while I don't have wine to hand, I have had 2 glasses of some very nice Prosecco.
Oh, very nice.
Yes, and in cheese terms, some salmon and cream cheese canapes.
Oh, very nice.
So yes, I came preloaded. And talking of salmon, I think somebody's just finished her dinner. Come back to say hi.
Liam says Graham Norton wine next. I've not seen Graham Norton. I'll have to try at the Northampton wine shop, see what they've got there, because I didn't see any Graham Norton wine in Asda. Definitely none in Waitrose. Take it. Do you have any?
No, I'm afraid it's just water for me, just sparkling water. I'm not really a wine drinker. I do like some dessert wine, so maybe that Snoop Dogg wine maybe is sweet enough.
Yeah. Right,
I like the really sweet stuff. That's, after a meal. But my husband is trying to go dairy free at the moment, so it's quite interesting buying him cheese which is made of coconut oil, because that's quite interesting. You wouldn't have thought that you really can get good dairy free alternatives. So but I was earlier on, my son's quite interested in trying different foods, so we actually bought some caviar. so we had caviar on toast earlier on today, because it's Russian, so he wanted to try that. And I've had it before, so it's quite interesting to have caviar on a Tuesday afternoon on toast. So
we've probably got a mutual friend called Pedro Jimenez. We have a mutual friend called Pedro Jimenez. No,
you should try it. It's lovely.
Oh, yeah. It's the best dessert wine.
It's a liquid.
I thought you were talking about a real person.
No. It's beautiful. It's like raisins in a glass.
I'll write that down then.
Yeah, there's 2 Pedro Jimenez, and I know Lidl sell. Lidl aren't going to send me a box of wine for this. They sell the cheap one, which is ordinary, but the dessert wine Pedro Jimenez is lovely.
Yeah,
I don't know. Fauna said the Hannibal Lecter range of reds is best avoided. I don't know. I like a nice Chianti. I wouldn't necessarily pair it with beans, because that would be too gassy. Right. Okay. So I think we can move on to another topic now. So I'm going to talk about the stories a little bit. So I will just talk about who is in Best of British Science Fiction 2023, and as we get to you, then maybe we could hear a little bit about your stories. And so, I've put everybody in alphabetical order on the back, which means Robert does go first. So Robert, your story So your story is called.
It's called. It's actually had two titles in its life. I think "Thus with a Kiss I Die," which, as we all immediately recognise, is a Shakespeare quote.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, I remember last year I talked about writing a story that required very few edits and was sold quickly, and for that reason, it didn't stick in my mind. This is the sort of opposite end. This one's been written and rewritten many, many times. But my excuse for early onset dementia and sort of middle class, middle age alcoholism, sort of blanking my mind, is that this was actually sold a long time ago. I think it was submitted to Aurelius, the Australian market, who took it in about 2021 and was accepted in 2022 and then published in 2023. So when it was selected for this, I had to sort of go back to it and remind myself. It's a sort of set in the world of universities and tech with academics. One academic has been poached by a big corporation in order to research. It's the sort of mind-body problem, the moving of the soul or the psyche into hardware, and can it move between people? I don't really want to give much of the plot away, but there's quite a lot of Shakespeare in there. One of the researchers is as big a Shakespeare fan as they are a scientist, and a lot of things revolve around Shakespeare quotes, and rarely for me there's even a love story in it. I'm normally quite cynical and hard-hearted, and human emotions, where do they appear in science fiction? But this has a love story in it. So if it was taken by the original market and grabbed by you, maybe I'll try writing about matters of the heart a bit more in future as well.
That's it. The first name for science fiction was science romance, after all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Hugo, was it going back? His original criteria for science fiction was a bit weird. I think it had to have a romance element in it. And if it wasn't science fiction, I seem to remember hearing. So luckily it became a broader church than that.
Yes. So yeah, I do think, yes. I like to pick stories that are different and varied, and I like to pick some that are light. I like to pick some that are very hard hitting, and I think yours just really spoke to me because of those elements, those gentle elements that really shine through that. And of course, I love Shakespeare as well. Big fan of the Bard. I am one, but the Bard.
The Bard, yes.
Yeah.
And it's got a woman with a pig's face in, and you can't go wrong with that element.
No, not at all. Okay, and then we have an appearance from Stephen Baxter. I think I've had one from Stephen Baxter before, but so the Stephen Baxter's story is called Gauguin's Questions, and again that's about a famous person, Gauguin, but there's an artificial intelligence that's asking questions about art on a space station, and it's about the transcendence, I believe, of art after its purpose after humanity. So I think it's one of those things where we have had a lot of those questions like raised lately. When I talk about the zeitgeist, that's one of the things I think that's coming through rather a lot now, and I thought that was really timely. And then we have Chris Beckett. Chris Beckett are one of my favourite writers. We did just recently do one of his books for our book club. We did The Holy Machine, which if we all dressed as sexy robots, we went along to it, which is we basically decided that before we read it. And that is another one about art, the art app story. So yes, very good. And then we have David Claydon. So David Claydon is next. So David. Story.
Yeah, so I guess my story is really about someone who wants to squeeze more time out of the day and who doesn't, particularly if that means we get to work less and enjoy life a bit more. So it was an idea around a protagonist who's actually given the chance to do that. Yeah. So through various means, the ability to sort of overclock the brain to be able to do a day's work in half a day. And the idea, obviously, or the attraction of that being then that you have half a day back, which I must admit is obviously, if any of my if my employers are watching, then that is absolutely not what I would want to do at all. I'm totally devoted to my job, but this is purely a work of fiction. So it was just exploring the idea of, what if you take that a little bit further, and does it actually really deliver the result that you want in terms of being able to squeeze a week's worth of work into a day and therefore take 4 days off? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. And some of that actually came from, at the time I was commuting into London every day, and it was, I suppose it's about a 2-hour commute there and 2 hours back in the evening after a sort of full long day. So I'd reached the point for a significant part of the year where I'd leave home and it would be pitch dark, jump on my bike, cycle to the station, come back in the evening, it was pitch dark. So there's a kind of a poor running joke that the character has with his wife that while he's away, she could paint the house all sorts of extreme colours, which was actually something I said to my wife at the time. But
you wouldn't notice until it was summer.
you wouldn't notice until it was summer, exactly. What are these pink stripes on the front of the house? When did that happen? So yeah, that's really what the story is about, just exploring how well that goes for my protagonist. I won't say whether it goes well or not. You can read the story and find out.
Okay. And then we have Jane Fenn's story, and your story, Muse Automatique.
Yes. Yeah. Muse Automatique, or The Many Deaths of Galena Darley. Yeah, that's really pretentious. It is a very pretentious story at one level, but it's definitely more high concept than I'd normally go for, as witnessed by the fact that I actually entered it into the BBC National Short Story Award, which will never be won by a science fiction story. And it didn't get shortlisted, but it got longlisted. And there's about 1,200 entries, and 60 is the long list, which, considering that's me competing against every other short story writer in any genre in the UK, I was actually quite proud of that. Obviously, I'm even more proud of having it in the Best British SF. It's a far future virtual reality story musing upon the nature of reality and the value of mortality, and obviously features a reincarnation of Salvador Dali. That's all I can really say about it, really.
Yes. So I learned a little bit about Dali at university, because I actually did one of my modules in French was on surrealism. So yeah, there were a bunch of characters, to say the least.
I've got a novel in history of art, and I've always been fascinated by the surrealists and Dadaists, so I wanted to write something that used that in a science fiction context.
Yeah, and the way they use muses or interpreted women as muses, and sometimes it wasn't to their benefit at all.
Not really, not at all.
Yeah. Okay, and then the next story is by Rhiannon Grist, who sadly couldn't join us this evening. She was due to. And Rhiannon Grist's story is A Change of Direction. Rhiannon writes these extremely clever, very funny stories. Always full of loads of twists. And you'll see Rhiannon on the circuit. She's got bright blue hair sometimes, and just fantastic. So Rhiannon, we're very sad that you weren't able to join us, but hope people read your story and love it as much as I do. The next story is Andrew Hook. Andrew Hook is a lovely chap, a brilliant writer, and his story is called So Close to Home. If I'm going to make a recommendation for you first, I read last year, earlier this year, Candescent Blooms, his short story collection about the golden age of Hollywood, unusual deaths. He's got that kind of brain that just finds very unusual things to write about and really sort of pull you in. So yeah, that's a good story as well by Andrew Hook. And we have got Felix Rose Kowitsky. So Felix Rose Kuritsky is called Pearl, and it's a very short story, but it's a lovely story. And then we've got Tim Lees. So Tim Lees is more well known as a thriller writer, and Tim Lees' story is called Vermin Control. And then we've got Tim Major. So Tim Major is a very striking story, The Brazen Head of Westinghouse. So I believe this is written for the J.G. Ballard inspired anthology that came out and has a lot of that element to it. So it's yeah, it would fit very well with it's kind of like surreal kind of stories as well. Then we've got Angus McIntyre. Angus McIntyre's story is Boojum. It's great to hear a different kind of voice, narrative voice, and Boojum is one of those. I've got a couple of stories that are a bit like little less Britishy stories. So Boojum has a very interesting narrative style. And we have LP Melling's story, Le Blutran Suburbiral, which is set in South Africa, and yeah, it's really, really compelling. Fiona Moore is next.
Yes, my story is And If Venice is Sinking, and it's fairly unashamedly a pandemic story. You know, it was started during the pandemic out of a discussion on virtual tourism, and my friend Graham Head said, what if, virtual tourism does, one of the reasons people were saying virtual tourism could be a takeoff, even after the pandemic was people, you could use it to visit places like Venice and so on that are vulnerable to erosion and damage. Yeah. And Graham was saying, well, what if there's doing the virtual tourism, damages it as well? So I started writing about that, about a future world where, virtual tourism is the norm for places like Venice or Pompeii or other sites that could be damaged. But we've discovered that the virtual tourism, the psychic weight, kind of taking a concept from Nigel Neal and the Stone Tape, also damages sites. So increasingly virtual sites are being cut off. And this also all takes place if you're this was first published in a Canadian SF magazine, On Spec, and if you're a fan of Canadian music, you might recognize the title, but I don't expect anybody else to. It's the title of a song by Spirit of the West, and the song is essentially, it's about having a honeymoon in Venice, and sort of the kind of joy and love you feel when you have a honeymoon. But the guy who wrote it died young. He had early onset Alzheimer's and died quite young. Mm-hmm. So there's kind of, this is also a story against the backdrop of this, of a relationship which has gone very, very sour indeed, and it's up to the people involved to repair it, and through finding a way of repairing the damage of virtual tourism. So, come for the what if, stay for the doomed and complicated romance.
Yes. Just saying, a couple of people joined us. Hi, Heather, and hello, Ali.
Hi, Ali.
So next we've got Alistair Reynolds, who I've chosen to head up the anthology with Detonation Boulevard. I mean, how could I not pick a story called Detonation Boulevard? Sisters of Mercy fan. Yes, that's no more of a Sisters of Mercy song. Yeah. And then we have EBSU. So EBSU's very compelling story, Little Sprout. There were a couple of stories I was hovering between for her, because that there had lots of brilliant description, and I just thought, oh, that's amazing, and I picked this one. The descriptions are just so awesome. It really places you in the world. Then we have Taker, your story.
So my story is called Tough Love, and it was first published in my collection Umbilical, which is published by Newcomb Press, which I should have mentioned earlier on. Actually, that happened to me last year. And I had a micro short story collection called Waterloo, published by the excellent Blackjack Books. And actually, Umbilical is part of the Polestar series, and Jane Fenn's #1 at the Polestar. So it's lovely to see Jane here, and actually
I've got a Polestar too. So
yeah, I was going to say.
Excellent.
Yeah, so we've got,
Sisterhood.
that's right. It's really lovely to meet everybody. So so Tough Love was first published in Umbilical. So it's kind of one of my hopeful but maybe ultimately a bit sad stories. I sometimes write those because I just like wallowing in the sadness. But in essence, it's about addiction and how gaming can be very addictive, highly addictive, and what one family tries to do to break the addictions. And I'll leave it at that because addiction is something I'm constantly fascinated with. It's just a topic that I think is very interesting, and I'm trying to figure out how people can move through addictions and release themselves from the hold.
Yeah.
I'm aware I need to mute myself because I don't know whether it's me that's hissing. So I'll just I
think you might be hissing, yeah, but never mind.
So I'll put myself on mute.
We also have a cat. Hello, cat. Yeah, so comment from Paul saying he was involved in the early days of On Spec in Alberta about 35 years ago, and he's delighted to hear it's still going. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
I've
it
got a
is.
story on Spec. It's either coming out or about to come out. So yeah, so me as well.
Yay.
Yeah, apparently edited by the wonderful Diane Walton. So shout out.
Yeah, On Spec published my first ever professional sale back in 2000.
Fab. On Spec.
Yeah.
No.
The next story in the collection is Anna Sun. Anna Sun's story, The Scent of Green. Oh, Anna, again, somebody I had a couple of stories I wanted to pick from, and I chose this one. This one is very ecological. It's a great story. And we've got Adrian Tchaikovsky's story, which is called Personal Satisfaction. I've not read one like this that combines elements of fantasy and science fiction quite so well, in a way. So it's dueling robots, if you like. And then we have Lavi Tidar. Lavi's in pretty much most of these as well. Lavi's story is called The Station Master. And I believe that's another one that's J.G. Ballard inspired. And then we have Ian Watson. Ian Watson, who writes very whimsical, surreal, crazy science fiction because he's got a brain the size of the universe. Yeah, and he's very dear to us. And so, yeah, Ian Watson is the last person on my list. So those are the stories. The people who are in the stories this time round. I have Paul Rogers says cool. Nice, thank you. Okay, so the next question I have got is Zeitgeist. We've got a quarter of an hour to go before we sign off, so I've got a couple of questions. If anybody has any questions from those people watching that you would like to put to our panelists, you are panelists, you're guests, then let us know. Yeah, so I'm going to ask about what do we think today's SF Zeitgeist is? Because I write an introduction every time, and I feel that when I'm reading hundreds of stories for Best of British Science Fiction, I'm picking up on the news pretty much, but it's a slow news. Sometimes people are submitting things that they wrote a while ago and then finally found a home, or sometimes people are getting things published that are brand new and you can feel the newness on them. So I find that there's quite a lot of stuff I'm having to be a little bit picky about as well, because we come out of certain time zones quite quickly, like the lockdown and zeitgeist is something I feel that we kind of it dates itself in a way, but some of those questions still linger. So if someone could do something with the questions that we have from those times, then that's brilliant. So maybe for stories that are not so obvious that are to do with the news cycle, or if someone could think what next, and maybe what next after that, and speculates onwards. So in some sense, you might think some of this might be quite political as well. So I don't know, Robert, what do you think? Have the politics invaded your writing?
You'd think they would. I mean, being a sort of, a candidate for the Green Party, you'd think a lot of my fiction is ecological. It's not. I tend to sort of steer away from that. And actually, the last thing, or one of the most recent things I've sold, which is in Fission number 4, which I think is just come out or is about to come out. I mean, I thought it was a very bleak black comedy. I'm not sure whether the editors read it as that, but it's essentially about railing against solutions to problems simply allowing mankind to put more people on the planet and then sort of, just rebalance the problem back again. So, if anything, that's a sort of cry that all these science fiction solutions to problems, well, it just kicks another problem or creates another problem. We just kick the problem down the road. In terms of the zeitgeist, I do wonder to what extent people are reading a zeitgeist into what they read, because certainly, I mean, the other people on the panel may have a much higher hit rate than this. I tend on average to need to send things out a dozen or 15 times before somebody bites them. And if you factor in how long that takes, Clark's World, very efficient. Neil Clark, if you're out there, thank you for rejecting all my stories, within about a day. I admire that efficiency. I think I might be up to about 100 that Neil has just batted straight back to me. But other venues will hold on to things for months and months and months. So typically, like the story that you've got in this current anthology, they may have been written 3-4 years before. So I almost deliberately don't. I avoid putting anything contemporary and current in, because I know it'll be dated by the time it's eventually sold and eventually published, and you eventually pick it up for the Best of British Science Fiction 2028 or something, Donna.
Yeah. So say it's kind of news, but maybe it's slow news.
Yeah.
No, as opposed to a slow news day, where it's just when.
Yes,
we often hear about things that are more interesting than whatever's actually going on. I feel that when someone says it's a slow news day because they have a different kind of story that's a bit they find quite trivial, and I'm like, no, I like to hear the trivial stuff. Just
indeed.
Maybe have a refocus about what the news should be. Actually, I don't know. I do find there's quite a lot of ecological stuff comes through. I find that has, but then I think it's a perennial problem that we've kind of got.
Yes, yeah. I mean, science fiction is always about solutions to current problems to a certain extent. So it's unavoidable.
Yeah. Oh, we've got some comments coming in. Right. Oh, yeah. So Liam says, "Talk mates of Fission 4."
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes.
Vaughan says Lightspeed lives up to its name. Is that with rejection turnaround?
Probably, but they very rarely seem to be open.
Oh, right. I think that has been a recent discussion is like that I've seen online about how quickly those Clarkswell rejections come in. So if you've been published by Clarkswell recently, well done.
Oh, absolutely.
I have not, but they have interviewed me for issue 214. There we go. I'm in it. Me and China Medieval, because we're so alike. You're saying, oh yes, too, Vaughan. I hope you're agreeing with me. I'm very like China. Okay. What does anyone else would say about? Do you have a personal zeitgeist? What is it that you're writing about that's influenced by the now?
Well, I mean, it's slightly zeitgeisty, but I mentioned that I'm, the 3 stories that link stories that have been published in Clark's World, and I'm actually, you know, there seem to be about 10 in the series in various stages of completion at the moment. And I suppose it's kind of zeitgeisty in that they take place, I guess, about 50 or so years in the future constant moving target. But it's recognizably our society, but after our current society has collapsed. You know, the billionaires have holed up in their bunkers and then promptly been shot by their own security robots. You know, in as much as there is technology, people are kind of harvesting it out of scrap heaps and, you know, repurposing it and so forth. But in a way, the thing is, they're all quite optimistic, you know, for certain values of optimism. There's a lot of violence, there's a hardship, but at the same time, part of where I was coming from with it was you can look at the headlines and you can look at some of what we're doing and you can look at the science and you can sort of think, oh God, we're doomed. But I mean, you know, my doctorate is in anthropology, and you know, where as a species we've been around for 150,000 years, of which 140,000, as far as we can tell, have been spent as hunter-gatherers.
Yeah.
You know, and so I was thinking, you know, we may feel like we're doomed, but are we doomed? Is it just that you know, our descendants will survive? They'll just go back to being hunter-gatherers, and you know, and that's actually normal for us. This is the aberration, you know. So in a sense, kind of what I was trying to say in the story is, or, you know, if we don't make it to the stars, if everything we've done, you know, winds up becoming sort of things you dig out of a spoil heap, it's still okay, you know.
So we're on a 10,000 year blip.
Yeah, we're on a 10,000 year blip, and you know, we're going to carry on just doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Question from Ali: is scarcity post scarcity a zeitgeist thing, or is it just what I'm reading? I reckon it is personally. What does everybody else think?
Yeah, add to that artificial scarcity as well. I think that's a zeitgeisty thing.
What do you mean by artificial scarcity? So like you're being told things are.
At the moment, we're not. We are currently living in an artificial scarcity society. You know, we have enough money as a society to feed everybody, house everybody, clothe everybody. It's just that money is kind of unevenly distributed. Amartya Sen, the economist, pointed out that all famines are man-made, you know, and he goes through this in exhaustive detail about how various famous famines that people said were inevitable could have been avoided, you know, if you know, certain things had been redistributed in certain ways. And it's sobering reading.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's hoarding of resources to ramp up prices as an example.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who is hoarding all the eggs.
Rich.
Me.
Yeah. Don't get me started.
It's different things. It's just you've got to be just like plan your cake. Just in various shopping trips. Is it flour today? Is it eggs tomorrow? Whereas the sugar seems to be fine, you know. And dishwasher tablets.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just bought a dishwasher. I can't help it. It's my first one. Magic washing up cupboard.
Yeah. I think those kind of themes, they're perennial in science fiction. They might have a 2024 flavour to them at the moment, but you know, in uneven distribution of resources and hoarding and protectionism, you know, the strangers coming across the English Channel and invading our beaches and whatever, it's always been there in some way, shape or form. You know, it might just have sort of 2024 clothes on, but you know, what's underneath is a perennial concern. So
2024 clothes probably look a little like 1980s clothes, but not as well made.
No.
Okay, so we're coming up to our last 5 minutes. So I'm gonna. Has anybody got any Worldcon news?
You've got Worldcon news. You've got Worldcon news.
Me?
Yes.
Well,
we do, but you know, you're the editor.
Oh yeah, do you know what? I still have yet to go and have a look on my. Is one of my things that I've been trying to get done today is go on Panorama and tick my panels. So as yet, I don't know what panels I'm on, but I know I'm on some. So there's that. It is how many weeks away now? We are the 16th.
Cool.
1, 2, 3 weeks away. 3 weeks away. I did see that news article concerning George R.R. Martin, in which George R.R. Martin said that he hadn't been told stuff, and then people were saying I hadn't pressed the thing or something, and I'm like, I think he might. I just read it and is in the same boat as the rest of us in that he's just waiting for more information to come back. Now, for most of us, some of that information has come back already, and the next thing to do is going to be book launches. So I decided to have this book launch on the book birthday, so that we at least have one. And I'm actually trying to plan book launch myself at Worldcon for the Slab press, which is different from Newcon press. It's my own press, and I'm launching an anthology called Laughs in Space, or Laughs in Space if you're posh. I didn't think that one through. My accent just makes it sound, yeah, Laughs in Space, and yeah. So I'm hoping to have either a joint book launch or a solo book launch, but it's one of the last things that gets organized, they've told us. So but they say that there's an update. If there's no update, let people know, and that's an update. They've done that. So there's that.
Another cat. Kitty.
Sorry, Donna, we went off message there. We weren't listening to you. We just saw a cat.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think Ali's talking about middle class hellscape, which is the lack of dishwasher tablets, I think. Right, so who is going to Worldcon then? Who is going to go? Awesome. No, Jane.
Not.
It is expensive this year, though, I must say. It's a lot of people have to sort of like
it's a long way from the West Country.
Long way. Hey, Ali's going.
Yay.
Yeah, so that's good. So most of us are going to be there. It's going to be the big thing of the year, I think. Is that whoop to Ali going, Philip, or are you going as well? We'll see. Yeah, so that's going to be the next big thing in the science fiction calendar. So a lot of the authors from, of course, a lot of the authors from Best of British Science Fiction are going to be there. Gary's going to be there. So hopefully, Gary, because you're also, we'll find a launch for us for Laughs in Space as well. And it's going to be fun even if I'm living on porridge. I'm certainly not going to be bringing any more bottles of Snoop. Smuggling Snoop in because he's £12. I might as well buy hotel wine at that price. Right, so we're coming up to the hour. Any last tidbits that you would like to tell people about before we sign off? If I go round, yes, David, anything you would like to let people know about in the future projects?
Not well. A couple of things. Funnily enough, the story that I had in the previous Best of British, not last year but the year before, which was my first, is coming out in an anthology of the Best of Galaxy's Edge, unfold next month. So that's 2 anthologies, which is great. And people are probably familiar with the 3rd Flatiron anthology series. That's coming out, I think, probably September or maybe October time. I've got a story in that. So those are the things really from me to watch out for.
Brilliant. Taker?
Well, I'll definitely be at Worldcon, and I am on 2 panels, one about dystopias and Yevgeny Zamyatin's We, and one with the Lunar Press Publishing. So I'm looking forward to that, where I'm going to be launching the Utopia of Us. So I was going to say about the zeitgeist, I would say probably, dystopia, maybe, I'm thinking that maybe people have got that maybe in their head, and obviously with 15 fantastic stories in the Utopia of Us, I'm hoping some of those will get some more recognition as well. So more people picking up the anthology, which would be great. So that's me.
Excellent. Fiona?
Yeah, okay. Should mention that as well as having a story in Best of British SF, I've also got one in Best of Canadian SF, year's Best Canadian SF, and also one in the year's Best Arthropod short fiction. So, I guess I often say that I'm British and Canadian. I guess I'm an arthropod as well, maybe.
I love it.
And as per our discussion of On Spec earlier, I did forget to mention I've got another story coming out in a future issue of On Spec, but I don't know when. This one is also poignant and surreal, so enjoy that. And at Glasgow, I'm definitely, as well as the Laughs in Space launch, I'm on 4 panels, including policing in SF, Doctor Who in Scotland, and historical influences on SF costuming, and oh god, I can't remember what the 4th one is, but latest film and SF film and television to watch out for. So come and hear my opinions, because I've been watching a lot of Korean media lately, and I have opinions about programs you should be watching if you aren't.
Brilliant. Okay. Jane, what's coming up for you?
Nothing coming out publication-wise. See further. All my brain goes into games. I'm going to the 2 great but small but great West Country conventions, because I don't leave the West Country. Bristol Con as a panelist and Armada Con as guest of honour. And I'm sorry about my cat's bum. Always does that.
Oh, wait. All the cats want to be here, apart from mine. Where's mine? Yeah. And Robert, what have you got coming up?
Yeah, I've got lots of stories that I've sold this year. I'm just looking at the submissions grinder. I've sold 14 so far this year. Just little stories to little venues, but in the main, I've got a story on Cosmorama coming out on Friday. But obviously the big highlight, apart from Best of British Science Fiction, I've got a story in this little anthology called Laughs in Space. I think you might have heard of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, the Laughs in Space. We've got the e-book and the print book all available for pre-order right now. So yeah, that's worked all right. Woo! Official publication date August 12th. But today is the book birthday of Best of British Science Fiction 2023. It just leaves me to thank all my guests for joining me. So it's David Claydon, Taker Maria Smith, Fiona Moore, Jane Fenn, and Robert Bagnall. And thank you to all the people who've commented and made the show super funny as well. Thank you to all the cats for joining in. And thank you to everybody else who has been watching as well. And buy the book.
Yes. Thank you to you, Donna.
Thank you, Donna.
Yes, thank you, Donna, and thank you to Newcon.
Okay, and hello, Ian Waits. We love you.
Yes, we do.
Ian Waits is a star, I think, keeping the show on the road, really. It's a fantastic series, and you've got obviously a very fine editorial eye, Donna. So, but I don't know how you managed to read all those stories. I don't know where you find the time. Have you got one of those machines then?
No, but this is why I've given up comedy. I need more time. So there we go. Given up comedy mostly to the end of the year ish, I think. I don't know. People who want to book me for things.
Wonderful.
All right. Thank you, everybody else. Okay. Okay. And so bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Where's my leave button?